universe and nothing in between. Doesn't actually make sense. But of course what they mean is that humans are a special creature made by a deity precisely as we are, and that there are no transitional species. Therefore, anything science labels a transitional species must be either or a just an ape hominid. So Homo erectus was fully human. Australopithecus afarensis was apes, and so forth. They must pretend that all of these fossils are either humans or apes, even though the science is very clear these says otherwise. Humorously, they can't even agree on the distinction, as certain transitional species get labeled as apes by one creationist organization, Answers in Genesis, and as humans by another, like TI. But beyond this confusion, they also just flat out distort what science says.
Quite a few paleoanthropologists think that Neanderthals buried their dead, that they have been discovered as signs of art and culture. So although many artist discussions will depict Neanderthals as very primitive, if a Neanderthal were walking the door right now, we would not be able to distinguish them most likely from modern human beings.
Well, yeah, Homo neanderthalensis lived concurrently with Homo sapiens and did not evolve from them. In fact, it wasn't until we left Africa we encountered them in Eurasia and either defeated them or killed them. Luskin is pretending that science proposes we evolved from Neanderthals. It doesn't. But let's get to the main member of Australopithecus afarensis, one of many important intermediary species. The DL needs to convince the viewer that it is really just the centerpiece of this campaign is a PBS Nova documentary from 1994 called In Search of Human Origins. Featured within is an anthropologist named Owen Lovejoy. Let's check out a bold accusation made by Luskin and Pass. This PBS documentary shows anthropologist Owen Lovejoy manipulating fossils to make Lucy walk upright. The perfect fit was an illusion that made Lucy's hip bones seem to be
なんだ
But
よ
all was not lost. So,
決まったら
of the chips, roll off like ours.
ね
So we can see them showing Dr. Lovejoy using a power tool to grind away at what is implied to be the actual pelvis bone of Lucy, with one onlooker viewing this in complete shock as to the dishonesty. They are making it appear as though the hip bone was that of a chimp, and Lovejoy manipulated it to seem like that of a human. You know, like a fraud. Luskin reiterates this accusation himself.
And so when Lucy's pelvis had to be reconstructed using quite a bit of evolutionary interpretation and imagination.
Clear as day, big fat fraud. Now let's look at some parts of the documentary that Luskin conveniently decided to omit, narrated by Donald Johanson, who discovered Lucy in 1974. As Lovejoy pointed out, joint had all the hormones of human mixed, but on all fours. Looking upright is
ふっふっふ今日も冒険頑張るのだ
on the street. Jim gets around it, tries to walk up and Steve joins along. It's forceful and lame. It's tiring. So we are establishing that a lockable knee joint is needed for walking upright, which Lucy and similar organisms all have. Modern groups do not have. TI avoids even mentioning knee joints at all,
いっ
which
ぱい
represent
眠ると元気になる
よく来てくれた。 他に何か？
Possibly at one. Should we notice something odd? marched by hand to the lakeshore. If this is not clear, what they are saying is that a part of the pelvis had been shattered and fused into an unnatural geometry that made motion anatomically impossible and was not reflective of Lucy's true anatomy. Let's see what they decided to do about it. It was an illusion that made Lucy's hip seem to reflect Jim's.
他に何お前たちが頼りだからな。
今日も何にするのじゃ？また来るのを待っておるぞ。
And there it is. Lovejoy was doing absolutely nothing whatsoever to the fossils. He made a copy and plaster in order to further investigate their arrangement and kinetics due to the original sample having been shattered and fused in an unnatural way. And finished, it matched the knee, both indicating that Lucy walked upright. In case you missed it, let's play those key bits one more time. This PBS documentary shows anthropologist Owen Lovejoy and fossils to make Lucy walk upright. In Montana, Jimmy in plaster. Cut the damaged pieces out and together. There is no getting around this. Luskin and the DI lied, and they lied hard. They deliberately misrepresented the truth. They literally said where the narration says that he's manipulating a plaster copy and simply omit the audio while accusing him of manipulating the muscle itself in order to deviously make a quadruped appear like a biped because of his evil materialist agenda. To make it as clear as possible, just look at the transcript for the portion they made. Now let's restore what they found. As you can see, Lovejoy isn't the only one of the pieces of it. Again, there is no mention from the DI of the walking knee joint, which is a crucial detail that made Lovejoy suspicious of this in the first place, since a knee for walking upright and a pelvis for walking on all fours do not go together. Lustig then omitted that Lovejoy noticed the pelvis was broken into a series of individual pieces, which were then fused together in later fossilization. He deliberately left out these crucial details, which explain what Lovejoy was actually doing and why. And in this way, Lustig and the DI have committed slander. This is a criminal offense worthy of a lawsuit. There is no denying this. You don't have to understand an ounce of science. I knows that anybody watching that video will go and look for the Novatone, its easily Googleable transcript, to get more context or verify these claims. They know that any creationist watching will just believe them at face value. Anyone with a shred of honesty can now see the reality of the situation. It is a premeditated.
何を売るのじゃ？
Most of the DI sat down and deliberated
取引成立じゃん。
in order to most effectively ask doubt.
樹海へ挑むなら気をつけるんだな。
よく来てくれた。
Between apes that walk on all fours and humans that walk upright. What does Dr. Lovejoy think of all this?
別のようか。お前たちが頼りだからな。
Us. I've rarely seen such colossal dishonesty in any film.
これは常連
It's
様。
amazing but terribly
何にする
disheartening
の
for
じゃ？
the future of science that there are organized groups dispensing such trash. Sincerely. Unfortunately, the dishonesty doesn't end. Luskin is hell-bent on misrepresenting not only PBS and Lovejoy, but other research. In the video, Luskin claims that Lucy's feet were never recovered, but are shown as human-like in restorations.
It's not even 5 feet associated with the skeleton.
装備を変えるのかよ
as an upright walking, ape-like species.
He completely ignores our human-like footprints called the Latopian footprints that were attributed to her taxon of Australopithecines. He also ignores the
装備を変えるのかよ
STW-5730, another Australopithecus princess that is nearly a perfect skeleton. This specimen is colloquially known as Little and presents the same bipedal traits as Lucy.
なんで
Are you curious what these numbers are for? They are necessary because there are thousands of specimens making up over 100 individuals in the genus, including 4 other species: skulls, vertebrae, phalanges, long bones, and more.
また来るのを待っておるぞ
Seem like it's the only one, which again can only be dishonesty or ignorance.
みんなお
All
かえり
of these specimens
と
possess a suite
なんだっけ
characteristics that not only make them efficient bipeds, but made it biomechanically impossible for them to be anything else. Bowl-shaped pelvis and bottom can be mentioned. A valgus need for moving their weight.
どこにしまったかな
And arches like humans, and anteriorly located for breathing back, positioning the vertebral column directly underneath, thereby demanding a posture. The evidence is conclusive. But when you want to pretend no evidence exists for something, you can always just use a mountain of existing evidence, I suppose. Luskin then referred to a 2000 article in
ど
Journal
こに
Nature,
しまったかな
Limbs to Two Legs, by Collard and Ayala, which he claimed referred to Lucy as a knuckle. He said this.
In fact, an article in the journal Nature studied the hand pose and found that she had the knuckles of a knuckle walker.
As you can see, he said this while showing a bit of the actual text of the article, which he highlighted as saying, these features are thought to be associated with knuckle walking, seemingly in line with their desire to portray Lucy as a name. Now, does this article say what he claims it is saying? Not by a long shot. If you actually read the paper, which is only 1.5 pages, it is not making the case that a hypothesis was
あ
wrong.
なんだ
These two
よ
paragraphs literally begin with the phrase, the basic facts are not
いっ
disputed.
ぱい眠
A
れた元気
apparatus
にな
has
る
a
な
combination of traits not seen among living primates. They have human-like features like the foot, big toe, pelvis, and features more familiar to Miocene apes like the fingers, arms, and chest. And it outlines the true discussion as to whether the ape-like features are non-functional retentions from ancestral species, or whether the ape-like traits are functionally important in a mixed form. The repertoire is utilized due to the importance of getting around in trees. It then goes on to specify that the study this article is referencing favors the former, which is literally the precise opposite of the conclusion Luskin thinks it's making. It's funny, I'm not an anthropologist, and I was able to understand this paper just fine. Why do you think Luskin watched it so bad? Is he a complete moron, or was he deliberately obfuscating the contents of the article? Also, this article is referencing a study by Richmond and Strait, which found the same issue. Why did he not cite that one? He merely showed some text from a preliminary article for Links to Two Legs in News and Views that was introducing the main paper, and it was that humans evolved from a knuckle-walking ancestor. This paper is full of anatomical terminology that is a little dense, although fascinating, but it clearly concludes that the knuckle-walking features, if present at all, represent the synapse of the African ape and human clade. Since that sentence might not mean much to most people, let's see how this paper was summarized by Henry G. in the supplement. These fists were made off, where he said, Richmond and Strait have looked at the wrist bones of 2 extinct members of the human family, Australopithecus canadensis from Kenya and Australopithecus afarensis, the famous Lucy skeleton from Ethiopia. as they were nature.
もう大丈夫
For example, bipeds, they walk like as
暴れるの我が技よ
knuckles. It is also in agreement with Pollard and Aiello that the knuckle-walking features are relics of organisms that were common ancestors of African apes and humans. Why did Luskin do any of that? I think I know. What do we call this deceptive tactic? Dr. Richmond was asked if Luskin was correct in his summary of the paper that an article in the journal Nature studied the hand bones of Lucy and found that she had the hand bones of a knuckle walker. He replied, well, yes, Luskin's comment is a flagrant mischaracterization of our scientific results. Lucy did not have the hands of an active knuckle. Rather, there is empathy that pertains to knuckle walking adaptations.
この私が
It isn't abundantly clear now that Luskin's video is a bogus hit piece. We don't know what else to tell you. This is not an isolated occurrence. This is the modus operandi of the Discovery Institute. This is what they do. I pointed this out numerous times in my response to James. And there was the quote line of Matthew
暴
Powell.
れるの我が
This
技よ
representation of one black, the faster than lightspeed cut off of Lee Cronin, and the bald-faced lies about Jack Shostak, just to name it. Luskin uses precisely the same tactics. These charlatans have no ability to discredit the science that invalidates their archaic worldview, so they have to lie about it. This is not mere stupidity. It is deliberate and malicious dishonesty. This is all you really need to know about Casey Luskin. He's a dime a dozen apologist preaching outside of his field and lying through his teeth consistently and repeatedly. Again, anyone who merely cites his dual status has reason to believe he's
壊してあげる
PhD in geology is not qualified to talk about anthropology, any geology. It is simply that creationist propaganda mills have so few PhD holders at their disposal that they have to spread them paper thin and present them as authorities in a field they have zero training in. So to anyone desperately playing the qualifications game in the comment section, save your breath. Casey and I are equally qualified in anthropology, and that is not at all qualified. The difference is that he lies about it, and I don't.
暴れるの我が技よ
Care about
もう大丈
research.
夫
Listen to the tens of thousands of working anthropologists with doctorates actively publishing research in the field. Unanimously agree on the descent of modern primates like humans from an ancestor. If degrees matter, then those tens of thousands of degrees in the field are incomparably more valuable than Casey's one degree in an unrelated field. What's that? Their degrees don't matter?
壊
Then
してあ
guess
げ
what?
る
9 dozens. Or any one guy with it can't claim face. This imbalance in credibility is a huge problem. So they have to somehow cast doubt on the entire scientific community in one swoop. And of course their aim is corruption. Casey himself complains on his website about the academic censorship of Armenian
私もやるわ
critics. This is totally idiotic. There is no censorship in science. Science is not law. Religion is dogma. So creationists and dogmatism come to science to try to. In reality, practically everyone in science is trying to do something wrong. That's how science works. Unlike ancient religious scripture, in science nothing is sacred. If you prove a pillar of science to be incorrect, you get a Nobel Prize. This is what makes their scripts so ridiculous. There is no censorship of flat earthers in the scientific community either, because flat earth is not science. Intelligent
Let's
is not science. Religion trying to Trojan horse its way into science. That's why real scientists reject it. Not because of some imaginary materialist agenda, which again, in actuality, is just a synonym for doing science. These empty mischaracterizations are yet another strategy of TIA. Too much science proving you wrong? Do what James Tour does. Just call it hype and walk away.
み
It's a
んな
tactic
お
that
か
allows
え
them
り
to dismiss legitimate science without
夕方まででいいの
whatsoever to address that science. Not surprisingly, King Solomon says this word too.
Now let's talk about some of these early hominids for the hype that has gone